All right, guys, so let's talk about this here. Honestly, this is a big deal, bro. This is a big deal, what you're about to hear. This is in NBC News. 7th Department of Justice official resigns and warns Trump could use charges as a leverage over New York City Mayor Eric Adams. A letter from one prosecutor explains why the new administration is facing one of the largest Justice Department mass resignations since Watergate. So I'll give you the basic breakdown here. What happened is the Department of Justice had all these charges filed against Eric Adams, the mayor of New York. Eric Adams is a colossally corrupt Democratic politician, and this is a guy who, I believe it was Turkey in particular, he took all these gifts vis-a-vis Turkey and then basically, gave them favors as well. I mean, just we're talking old school style corruption. Like, usually the new school is, hey, just don't have a direct quid pro quo, don't say it out loud, make the bribes in the form of campaign contributions, and then you largely get away with it. Corruption is largely legal. Bribery is largely legal in our political system. But every now and then you get some moron like a Bob Menendez comes along who doesn't even know how to color within the lines of the legal corruption and bribery, and he's got gold bars in his jacket, and he's doing deals with Egypt in his case and other countries, and that, they're buying his wife a luxury car directly. Like, some people are so stupid they'll do the old school corruption, which actually could get you in trouble, right? Well, that's what we're talking about with Eric Adams. It was very clear this guy's deeply, deeply, deeply corrupt. So the Department of Justice had these charges. And by the way, let's point this out too. For everybody who says, they're biased against Republicans and they let Democrats get away with everything. What the fuck are you talking about? Hunter Biden, Bob Menendez, Eric Adams, there was like 4 others from recent history, and you're pretending like, they only go after Republicans. Nonsense. Utter nonsense. So this is the Department of Justice doing their job. Now, since Eric Adams is a Democrat, so I go, I'm against these charges because he's a Democrat. No, because I'm not a fucking hack. I look at the charges, I look at the evidence, I look at the facts, and then I conclude, this guy's corrupt. These charges make sense. Well, that's not how Trump thinks. That's not how the top MAGA officials think. They viewed this as an opportunity. They thought, well, hold on now. This guy's desperate. This guy really, really wants a pardon because he knows he's going to go down if he doesn't get a pardon, right? And so what happened is Trump ordered the DOJ drop all the charges against Eric Adams. And what they're doing is they didn't actually fully drop them. They basically sort of put them on hold. And the reason they did that is he needs to be a total puppet for Trump as mayor of New York City, right? And so if Trump wants mass deportations all throughout New York City, he's going to allow it because this is how he keeps his ass out of prison. Now, if at any point Eric Adams goes, I don't want to do that, well, then they go, okay, the charges are back in effect, right? It's really mind-boggling and eye-opening, and it really is indicative of how Trump functions, right? Well, guess what? The people who brought these charges, and many of them are Republicans, right? They're like, no, this is not what we do. No, justice is supposed to be blind. It's supposed to be equality under the law. You can't make some corrupt political deal to try to use this guy as your puppet. We're supposed to say, he's a criminal. Here are the charges. There needs to be consequences. There needs to be justice. Right? So a lot of people are resigning. 7 DOJ officials. So here's what they say in NBC. On Friday, a federal prosecutor little known outside New York legal circles sent a 350-word resignation letter that bluntly explained why the Trump administration is facing the largest mass resignation of Justice Department lawyers since Watergate. In resigning, Hagan Scotton, who'd been one of the lead prosecutors in the federal corruption case against New York Mayor Eric Adams, succinctly described the core issue that has now led a total of 7 federal prosecutors in Manhattan and Washington to quit in protest. They have questioned multiple aspects of an order from Attorney General Pam Bondi and her acting Deputy Attorney General, Emil Bove, to drop the charges against Adams. But Scotton's letter highlights a core issue. Bondi and Bove, and through them, President Donald Trump, are not permanently dropping the charges against Adams. They are planning to dismiss the indictment without prejudice, a legal maneuver that would allow federal prosecutors to restore charges against Adams at any time, for instance, if he were to stop cooperating with Trump's immigration policies. Scotton was citing an issue that Danielle R. Sassoon, the now former acting U.S. attorney in Manhattan, raised in her own resignation letter to Bondi this week. Sassoon described what she said amounted to a quid pro quo. In other words, what they're saying is this deal that Trump is making with Adams is in itself a quid pro quo, and what you guys are doing is illegal, and we're going to have no part in it. Quid pro quo that Adams' attorney, Alex Spiro, had made in a meeting with her, Bove, and other prosecutors on January 31st, according to Sassoon. Spiro suggested that if the corruption charges against Adams were dropped, the mayor would help the Trump administration crack down on migrants. Long-standing Justice Department guidelines bar prosecutors from using the threat of federal criminal prosecution to blackmail Americans, from ordinary citizens to powerful elected officials, into carrying out their wishes. In his resignation, Scotton nodded to these guidelines and said that such an agreement ultimately would put Adams, the mayor of the country's largest city, at the legal mercy of the Trump administration. Quote, no system of ordered liberty can allow the government to use the carrot of dismissing charges or the stick of threatening to bring them again to induce an elected official to support its policy objectives, Scotton wrote. Our laws and traditions do not allow using the prosecutorial power to influence other citizens, much less elected officials, in this way. On Friday, Eric Adams appeared on Fox News' Fox and Friends show with Trump border czar Tom Homan, who offered a colorful version of the kind of scenario the departing prosecutors had been worried about. Quote, if he doesn't come through, Homan said of Adams' promise to allow federal immigration agents to operate at the city's Rikers Island jail, I'll be back in New York City and we won't be sitting on the couch. I'll be in his office, up his butt, saying, where the hell is the agreement that we came to? Guys, in other words, they're just saying it out loud. The thing that other people would be smart enough to keep behind closed doors, they're just saying it out loud. This is incredible, bro. This is absolutely incredible what we're witnessing here. So, look, I want to give you a little more on this. Ryan Grimm did a good video on it. So here's what he has to say about what's going down here.
What's going on today, as we speak, inside the Justice Department is nothing short of extraordinary. So you probably already saw something like half a dozen U.S. attorneys and DOJ officials resigned in protest because they're refusing to drop the indictment against Eric Adams, because the Trump administration is making very clear that dropping the charges against him is part of a quid pro quo for Adams to pursue Trump administration policies. And using the Justice Department for that, using prosecution and prison for that, is just not part of the American experiment. It's not how we have done this for the last 200 plus years. Now, obviously, prosecutions are always on some level political, but linking them directly to blackmailing or leveraging a particular policy outcome from an elected official is just so far beyond the pale of what the Department of Justice has ever done before, that you're having these both career and political officials and Republicans, MAGA people, resigning. Daniel Sassoon clerked for Scalia and is a member of the Federalist Society.
That's a really important point that he just made right there, is that not only are these people Republicans, they are hardcore Republicans clerking for Antonin Scalia. I mean, that's like super far right, y'all. And even he's like, man, we can't be doing this. We can't be doing this.
You can see his thing here is Hagen Scotton. You're not going to get a more Republican name than Hagen Scotton. And what he says here is, he has a fun line at the end where he says, you will probably eventually find someone fool enough or cowardly enough to do this, but it's not going to be me. Ooh. And so one thing I think I can usefully add to this is that, so I do a lot of coverage of foreign countries' politics, Central America, South America, Asia, Eastern Europe. And in a lot of particular political economies, a lot of political systems, targeted, politicized prosecutions are an everyday part of those politics. So what we're talking about doing here is not unusual globally. It is unusual in the United States. Take Ecuador, for instance, or take a lot of countries around the world. You will have opposition officials getting threatened with prosecutions or actually getting prosecuted, and then their allies will flip under pressure to stay out of prison. You'll have entire deals made, coalitions built around who's getting prosecuted, who's getting put in prison, and who's not. And in Pakistan, for instance, going to prison is just part of kind of the political process of being in the political elite. You're going. The current prime minister has been in prison. It's assumed that you won't be in there forever. You might get back out, and then you might be back in power. I can tell you from covering these other countries, it's not a healthy way to run a democracy. Because it also breeds a lot of fear of losing power. And if you have a fear of losing power, you're then willing to do anything to stay in it. So far, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, is not finding anybody who's willing to put their name on the dropping of these charges. Like this guy Hagen says, they probably eventually will, but when they do, they will have transformed really what the Justice Department is.
That's crazy, bro. That's crazy what we're witnessing now. Because nobody actually believes that Eric Adams is innocent based on the indictment. Nobody believes it. But what he's been doing, and this is what Menendez tried to do too, is since he was caught red-handed, he's been flirting with MAGA and flirting with Trump, again, as a last-ditch effort to be like, hey, I'll be your bitch if you get me out of prison, right? And so, and he doesn't, Trump has no principles. Trump doesn't give a fuck. Trump just sees, well, what's useful for me? And in that scenario, he's like, I could use this guy. In the same way, think about J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance compared Trump to Hitler. You know, this guy was deeply anti-Trump, but since he genuflected and bent the knee, Trump likes the fact that this guy used to be against me and now he's for me, right? And so he likes to use Democrats in that respect, the ones who have no principles, have no core, and end up going full MAGA. And so he was flirting with them for a very specific reason. This is why Eric Adams did an interview with Tucker Carlson not that long ago. He's trying to do that full MAGA heel turn because, again, all he cares about, there is no core to this man. He's a vapid, empty hole, right? And so I just want to keep my ass out of prison. I'll do whatever the fuck you want me to do. And he even comes out and he pretends like, bro, the reason that Biden's coming after me is because I said he's not doing a good job on immigration, and I'm actually tough on immigration, and he's soft on immigration, bro, and that's why he's coming after me. This was all in anticipation of exactly what we're witnessing now, a corrupt deal with the president of the United States. And when Trump tries to get the DOJ to act in accordance with his wishes, across 7 of these people are like, no, we're not doing that. This is not how this country works. This is not how the rule of law works. I mean, this is getting beyond absurd at this moment. So it's just further evidence. He wants to be a dictator. He wants to be an authoritarian. And by the way, now I think it's reasonable to have the conversation. He's now said multiple times, flirted with the idea of staying in there past 2 terms. I think he's serious about it in the same way that before 2020, even before 2016, he hinted that if he lost, it would be fake and I actually won and I should stay in there. Like, when we saw that the first few times, people thought like, yeah, he doesn't actually mean that. If he loses, he's going to go away. And then he didn't. He tried to stay around. And now he's acting. He's already saying like, I want to stay in here. So just buckle up, man. This is going to be a rough ride. This is getting incredibly, incredibly ugly. And the fact that we have to cross our fingers and hope that nobody at the DOJ is going to be like, yeah, sure, I'll sign my name to that, right? I mean, it's great that 7 prosecutors resigned and were like, it ain't going to be me, bitch. That's great. But at some point, you're going to find like the equivalent of a Pete Hegseth for the Department of Justice, where he'll be like, yeah, I don't give a fuck. I just care about climbing the ladder. And so I'll do whatever the fuck you want me to do, even though now we're just completely caving into the idea that we're a fascist dictatorship. So down with Eric Adams, down with this deal. And look, I hope somebody out there, some attorney out there has a running tally of all of the laws that are being broken by both Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And honestly, I'd be surprised. We're at probably more than 1 a day. We're probably at like 4 or 5 crimes per day. I hope somebody's keeping a running tally because this is getting a bit absurd. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.